According to this video, this is the real reason the Los Angeles riots started. Democrats got caught fueling chaos, lying to the public, and shielding violent criminals, all while pretending it's all about compassion. But now the truth is out. Trump dropped the message and CNN is panicking. Let's walk through it.
So the riots got started in Los Angeles not because ICE was going in and arresting people who came here illegally, but because the fashion district had an investigation going on where they were smuggling and laundering money in from Mexico and Colombia. They did not report over 80 million in goods, and they did not pay over 17 million in taxes. So it's tax evasion. And of course, the Mexican president decided she would put in her 2 cents and say that the Mexican protesters that basically attacked ICE were heroes. Basically, these rioters were just interrupting an investigation, and they've gaslighted this community of high-strung people to believe that it was because people were being deported, which then lands the Unified School District of LA to get on a press conference and say, if you don't feel safe, we can use our schools as a safe place, even over the summer, basically saying they're going to harbor illegals. And all of a sudden, it's just turned into something that it wasn't before.
Wow. So according to her, it turns out these riots weren't about immigration at all. It seems it was about hiding the 97 million, with an M, money laundering operation, according to her, allegedly tied to the cartel. And they was hoping we never find out. And around the time that this broke, Democrats fueled a riot to distract from it. But Trump, he stepped in. He posted this earlier today, I believe, or last night. Los Angeles was safe and sound for the last 2 nights. Our great National Guard, with a little help from the Marines, put the LA police in a position to effectively do their job. Let me make sure I have this all the way up for y'all. Effectively do their job. They all worked well together, but without the military, Los Angeles would be a crime scene like we haven't seen in years. Governor Gavin Newsom had totally lost control of the situation. He should be saying thank you for saving his ass instead of trying to justify his mistakes and incompetence. That's right. 4,000, National Guard troops. I think it was 700 Marines. Yeah, no permission from Newsom, just action. Trump took over while Democrats were basically watching LA burn. And Democrats blamed ICE, but Senator Bernie Moreno, he broke it all down better than anyone right now.
What I keep hearing again and again is the idea of due process. And we've talked with lawmakers and others who say, look, if ICE were only apprehending and detaining individuals with criminal records, and if they were giving each detainee a chance to contest their case, we wouldn't have an issue with enforcement. But they say that's not happening, and innocent people, hardworking members of their communities, are getting swept up under the rug. Your response to that?
Well, they're dead wrong. Like I said, I followed the process to come to this country legally. And by definition, if you didn't follow that process, if you cut the line, you've broken our laws. So we're going to give them a limited due process, which is what they're entitled to. But we're going to do it in a way that protects Americans. We're going to get rid of these criminal aliens. And if you're in this country illegally, you need to go. There's millions of people like myself who are waiting in line to come to this country legally. Let's reward them for following our laws and not reward the people who skip the line. On top of that, Biden didn't even do any basic vetting. So we have all number of criminals in this country that we have to get out of here. That's what we promised we would do. And that's why we won the election resoundingly on November 5th.
Now, he's not just talking about the law. He actually lived it. And he's not letting the media try to spin his narrative in any kind of way. Meanwhile, let's backtrack a little bit. We've showed this clip before, but on CNN, a rare moment of truth actually slipped out, y'all. Y'all remember this?
So again, according to a CNN poll, 54% of Americans, and according to a CBS poll, 57% of Americans want every illegal migrant deported. It's not a majority want the criminals, a majority want every single one. That is the mandate that Donald Trump believes he was given. Immigration was the top reason people voted for him. Kim Kardashian hates this because she is rich. Like the people who employed those nannies. Rich people are now the base of the Democratic Party. They are the employers of low-wage labor. They love illegal migration because they get to pay their nanny less than they would have to pay an American. So, of course, they are very upset that their jobs program of an open border is coming to an end. Working-class people see this as a lifeline because they are still represented as the majority in every industry. I just want to make that point. There is not a single industry in the United States that is not done a majority by American citizens. There is no job that is beneath the dignity of Americans. There are no jobs Americans won't do.
There are a lot more Americans than there are illegal immigrants. So that is also true.
It's insult to the American worker to say to them, these are jobs that Americans don't want to do. When millions of Americans are doing those jobs.
Like there are more Americans in the country. So yes, there are going to be more Americans doing everyday jobs. I mean, it's an overwhelming number of Americans versus immigrants.
There's also tens of millions of Americans who've left the labor force and aren't working in the Trump administration.
Karen, a quick last word, and then we have to go.
Well, and I will just take us back to last year when we were talking about a town in Ohio where the president spread a false rumor about Haitian migrants eating cats and dogs, which was a total lie. And do you know why those migrants were there? Because the factories that were there could not find anyone to take the jobs. The white, no. The working class white, the working class white people wouldn't do the jobs
for those wages.
For those wages.
So
let me just say, I don't know that
labor.
They could pay much less. Yes, I agree with you.
I mean, you're suggesting, just to be clear, you're suggesting, and I think not incorrectly, that if they simply raise the wages, more Americans would do the jobs. That is probably true, just in a macroeconomic way.
Oh, wow. And I actually misspoke. We didn't see this clip. It's the very next clip that we going to backtrack on. However, even CNN's own guest had to admit it. Shout out to Batya Ugar Sargon. I tried. I don't think I'm going to attempt again. But the working class wants the border secured. Period. It's not just working class Americans. Immigrant voters are flipping too. And this is the clip that I told y'all previously meant to say. We backtracking on. Check it out.
Start off on the fact that immigrant citizens, immigrant voters, foreign-born voters have gone tremendously to the right on this issue in 2024 and 2025 versus where they were in 2020. Closest to or trust more in immigration. You go back to 2020. Democrats, get this, held a 32-point lead on this issue. Immigrant voters were in the Democratic camp. Jump forward to 2024, 2025. Look at that shift, a 40-point shift to the right among immigrant voters. Republicans now lead on this issue by 8 points over Democrats, more so than any other group that I could find. The group of voters who became more hawkish on immigration were, in fact, immigrants themselves, immigrants who are registered to vote in this country.
So that's on that issue. How about how they feel about kind of traditionally, historically, about Donald Trump?
Yeah. So, you see this shift and you go, what is going on underneath the hood? Well, take a look, Donald Trump. You remember when he first ran back in 2016, immigrant voters were one of his weakest spots. But look at this. Trump's vote share in presidential election among, again, immigrant citizens, those who are registered to vote. Look at this. In 2016, he got 36% of the vote. You go to 2020, 39% of the vote. Look at this. In 2024, all the way up to 47% of the vote. Some polls I looked at had him barely losing that vote. Some polls I looked at had him barely winning that vote. Again, there is no block of voters that shifted more to the right from 2020 to 2024 than immigrant voters. And Donald Trump, at least in some surveys, actually won that vote. On average, it's about equal. So there may be all this stuff, right, about undocumented immigrants and Trump being harsh on them, but immigrant voters themselves have increasingly liked Donald Trump and have increasingly moved to the right on immigration and into the Republican camp.
Well, then on that, what you're getting at, how immigrant citizens, voters, feel about people in the country illegally.
Yeah, and this is where it all kind of comes together, Kate Baldwin. Look at this. The net favorable rating, immigrants who are here illegally, among immigrant citizens, again, those registered to vote. In 2020, look at this, plus 23 points on the net favorable rating. But look at where we were in 2024, minus 6 points, underwater. So immigrant citizens have become increasingly unfavorable in their views of those immigrants who are here illegally. So I think it's so important when we're talking about this debate from a political angle to separate those out who are undocumented immigrants versus those who are here legally and those who are citizens and those who are voters, because that group of voters has felt increasingly distant from those immigrants who are here legally. And so again, when we're talking about this, at least from a political angle, this is why Donald Trump feels so comfortable, because in fact, amongst the group that you would think that would be most opposed to this, in fact, they become increasingly favorable, not just towards Donald Trump, but towards a Republican point of view on immigration and becoming distant from those immigrants who are here illegally.
Yeah, an important baseline to consider as this plays out.
Yes, we'll see where we are in a few weeks.
Yeah, thanks so much, Harry. John.
So as I stated before, legal immigrants are done being treated like doormats, while these illegals get all of these free handouts. It's not fair, and the numbers literally don't lie. So while Democrats are panicking, they are in panic mode, Trump calmly steps in. Yo, take a listen.
It's been reported that some actors may be boycotting.
I couldn't care less, honestly. All I do is run the country well. The economic numbers, you saw them today, they're setting records. We took $88 billion in tariffs in 2 months, far beyond what anybody expected. There's no inflation. People are happy. People are wealthy. The country is getting back to strength again. That's what I care about. And we're going to have a safe country. We're not going to have what would have happened in Los Angeles. Remember, if I wasn't there, if I didn't act quickly on that, Los Angeles would be burning to the ground right now. Thank you.
It's been reported that some actors may be.
No rage, no stunts, just the man reminding the world who's in control. But it's not just Trump pushing back. I want you to watch this exchange right here and ask yourself, why doesn't Hochul know the names of her own victims?
Hochul, on your first day in office, you signed Executive Order 1. Is that correct?
I believe it is.
And you extended this executive order not once, not twice, but 3 times, most recently January 16th of this year. Is that correct?
If that's what your facts show, I signed countless executive orders.
I would assume you'd know it's Executive Order 1. And this is a continuation of your predecessor's sanctuary state policies, correct? Is included in that.
I want to be sure we are defining sanctuary state properly.
I'll define it for you. It is the policy of the state that state officers or employees shall not disclose information to federal immigration authorities for the purpose of federal civil immigration enforcement. It goes on to say law enforcement officers may not use resources, equipment, or personnel for the purpose of detecting and apprehending any individual suspected or wanted for violating a civil immigration office. Law enforcement officers have no authority in the state of New York to take any policy action solely because the person is an undocumented alien. That's a quote in your executive orders that you extended. Now, do you know who Sakir Akan is?
I want to get back to the first part.
No, I'm asking a question. Do you know who Sakir Akan is?
I want to make sure you understand that this simply says that we will cooperate with ICE.
No, it does not say that. I read what it says, and let me talk to you about the results. Do you know who Sakir Akan is? You should, as the governor of New York State. Do you know?
Refresh my recollection.
He was an illegal migrant in New York. And do you know what crime he committed in addition to being here illegally?
No, I do not.
You do not. This was widely reported. He found a 15-year-old girl, threatened her with a metal pole, told her to get into the back seat of his car. He took her clothes off, and he violently raped her in Albany, New York. Do you know who Sebastian Zapita Khalil is?
I'm sure you'll tell me there's many cases, whether they're
These are high-profile cases. Yes. New Yorkers know about them, and you don't. So let's talk about Sebastian Zapita Khalil. Do you know who that is?
I don't have the specific details at my disposal, no.
Well, this is an illegal migrant in New York because of your sanctuary state policies. Do you know what crime he committed?
I'm not familiar at this moment.
I bet you're going to be familiar when I remind you. He found a sleeping woman on the subway, lit her on fire, and burned her alive. This is in Kathy Hochul's New York. And as I'm sure you are aware, and I'll remind you, that ICE issued an order to detain this violent criminal, but that was rejected by New York officials due to sanctuary state laws. Now, do you know who Raymond Rojas Basilio is?
I just want to say this. These crimes are horrific.
Because of your sanctuary state policies.
In all of these cases, we would work with ICE to remove them.
You did not in this case. They are walking on the streets because of your policies and your executive order that you signed 3 times. Now, Raymond Rojas Basilio, do you know who that is?
I'm telling you this. I will explain you the policies of New York. We cooperate. I know you're just trying to.
You do not. Specifically, ICE was told not to detain this individual, and he burned a woman alive on the New York subways in Kathy Hochul's New York. So I will keep on going. What about Raymond Rojas Basilio? Do you know who that is?
I'm going to tell you our overall policy, which will address all this.
I'll tell you who that is. He is an illegal who molested an 11-year-old in our state because, again, of your sanctuary state policies. This illegal was shielded from federal immigration enforcement and able to commit this heinous crime. And what about Wilson Castillo Diaz? Do you know who that is?
I am telling you this. We do cooperate fully with ICE and criminal prosecution. Our sanctuary
You're not advocating for these victims.
Only deal
this
with
is a 5-year-old who was raped on Long Island in Nassau County. You are not advocating on behalf of these victims. You are shielding illegals. Even in your opening statement, you prioritize putting illegals first.
That is not
Rapes
true.
of young girls, beatings of NYPD cops by illegals who are here under Kathy Hochul's failed policies, burning New Yorkers alive. This is Kathy Hochul's New York. It's one of the many reasons why you're hemorrhaging support from hardworking New York families.
These are horrific crimes, and they're heartbreaking.
They're horrific crimes that are committed on your watch. You signed this executive order on your first day in office. You signed it again and again this January. We deserve a governor who stands up for law-abiding New Yorkers, doesn't put illegals first, but actually puts New Yorkers first. I appreciate
Rather than going after the viral moment, I suggest you look at the facts.
I'm standing up for New Yorkers.
No.
Rather than addressing the illegals in New York, you are prioritizing your far-left sanctuary state policies, which you put in place with executive orders. Instead of advocating for victims, a 5-year-old who was raped,
with ICE.
you did not. They were released because of sanctuary state policies in New York State. No amount of words is going to clean up your failed record and these horrific crimes committed in sanctuary state that you created. And with that, I yield back.
Your representation, the fact.
Miss Stefanik just, I mean, the way she just held Kathy Hochul accountable like that, as Gunther added, that's definitely a mic drop moment. She wasn't prepared for that. Hochul, she never saw that coming at all. And I'm glad that we was able to see that, because these families are being torn apart and they're going to bat for these illegals and doing nothing for our American citizens. And to drive this all home, Tulsi Gabbard connected all the dots, y'all. Riots, cartels, paid protesters, and the Democrat silence. Check it out.
The director of national intelligence. All right, Tulsi, if you have foreign nationals saying, if you enforce the law, we're going to burn down your city, is that like a hostage crisis?
They are very clearly undermining the rule of law from the point that they entered our country illegally. And when we look at the dynamics that led us to this moment, Jesse, it all actually makes sense. This didn't come up out of nowhere. We had 4 years under the Biden administration of open borders that was very intentional by the Democrats. They thought it would help them politically. But there were vested interests as well in the cartels who profited heavily from human trafficking and drug trafficking, and who see the American people in our country as a new consumer base for their illicit trafficking. But all of this undermining of the rule of law, these open borders, is what leads to these riots that are happening in cities across the country. I found it interesting in your earlier clip, Jesse, about hearing Gavin Newsom talk about democracy and, this is democracy, and the hypocrisy of what is happening here. First Amendment says, yes, we each have a right to peacefully protest, but also under the Biden administration, They were the ones who were censoring free speech, who were trying to tell us what we were allowed to say and where and what topics, and who were targeting American citizens for exercising our fundamental constitutional rights. The bottom line is they don't care about the American people. They don't even care about the people that they're claiming to protest for. So many of them are paid protesters. This thing is being orchestrated, obviously, in many ways. And ultimately, President Trump is the one who took action to keep the American people safe and try to bring peace back to the streets that these rioters are destroying.
What can you tell us about the orchestration, the financing, and is Gavin, either whether he knows it or not, actually siding with the cartels here?
Whether he knows it or not, he is, certainly. Again, this is something that the Department of Justice and the FBI is looking into, who is funding these protesters. We've seen, the ads put up on Craigslist offering people thousands of dollars a week to go out and conduct these violent and dangerous riots in the streets of not only Los Angeles, but we saw earlier in Chicago and New York and other cities across the country. And ultimately, again, what the Democrats are advocating for is this continued lawlessness on our streets. And once again, insulting the intelligence of the American people, saying, don't believe what your eyes see very clearly is happening. Just listen to us when we tell you nothing to see here, just peaceful protests. The American people are not as stupid as these Democrats are trying to make us out to be.
Yeah, Trump got shot in the head. And he almost got hit a second time because a lot of people in this country hated him. They thought he was a dangerous dictator. If you have the politicians on the other side calling this man a dictator, and you have people, elected officials, calling ICE the Gestapo, what kind of environment does that create?
It creates a very dangerous one that we're seeing play out in the streets today. President.
What is that? Gestapo. I got to look that up. Whether Newsom knows it or not, his policies are helping cartels profit while his city is falling apart. City is falling apart. So y'all, let's lay this all out real quick. They told us the riots were about compassion, but we now know it was about cartel money, political cover-ups, and sanctuary policies shielding these criminals. Trump saw through the noise and he acted. Legal immigrants are waking up, and even CNN, they can't even hide the shift. And the moment Democrats were forced to answer for the chaos they caused, they deflected, or they said nothing at all. I always tell y'all how this is not about left or right anymore, but this is about what happens when the truth becomes inconvenient for people in charge. Keep your eyes open, man. Stay sharp, and above all, don't just react. Think. Y'all be safe. Please go check with somebody today. You can quite literally be saving their life. Also, I never really asked. I'm tired of saying I never really asked when I've asked like 5 or 6 times now. Make sure y'all hit that subscribe button, smash that like button, and definitely leave some comments to let me know your thoughts on your favorite or the clips that triggered you the most, rather. Y'all be safe.